I never thought I'd hear my own son call me baggage, but life has a way of delivering its cruelest blows through the people we love most. My name is Lillian, and for 25 years, my world revolved around my son, Easton. Every decision, every sacrifice, every moment was dedicated to giving him the best life possible. I worked 2 jobs, gave up my dreams of becoming an artist, and poured everything I had into his future. And for the longest time, it felt worth it. That changed the day Andrea walked into our lives. "Mum, I want you to meet someone special," Easton had said over the phone. His voice carried that nervous excitement I hadn't heard since his first day of high school. "We're coming over for dinner tomorrow." I spent hours preparing his favorite lasagna, the recipe passed down from his grandmother. The house was spotless, and I'd even bought fresh flowers for the dining room table. The doorbell rang at exactly 6 p.m. "Mom, this is Andrea," Easton beamed, his arm wrapped around a striking young woman with perfectly styled hair and designer clothes that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. Andrea's smile didn't reach her eyes. "So nice to finally meet you, Lillian. Easton's told me so much." The way she said my name, like it was something distasteful, made my stomach clench. During dinner, Andrea dominated the conversation, talking about her job in marketing and her plans to climb the corporate ladder. Every time I tried to share a story about Easton's childhood, she'd cut me off with a new topic. "Oh, those stories are so dated," she'd say, waving her hand dismissively. "Easton's focused on his future now. Aren't you, baby?" Easton would nod, avoiding my eyes. The final blow came as they were leaving. I was in the kitchen cleaning up when I overheard their conversation by the front door. "Your mom's kind of clingy, isn't she?" Andrea's voice carried through the hallway. "I mean, all those old stories and pictures everywhere. Don't you think it's time to cut the cord?" I waited for Easton to defend me, to say something, anything. Instead, he laughed. "Yeah, I guess she can be a bit much sometimes." "More like baggage," Andrea said. "You're right," Easton replied. "Maybe it is time for some changes." The plate I was washing slipped from my hands, shattering in the sink. The sound must have startled them, because their voices dropped to whispers before the front door closed. I stood there, hands trembling in the soapy water, staring at the broken pieces. 25 years of memories flashed through my mind: midnight feedings, school plays, scraped knees, college applications, graduation day. Every moment I'd chosen him over myself. My friend Ruby called later that night, as she did every Tuesday. "You sound off," she said. "What happened?" I told her everything. "That little shit," Ruby exploded. "After everything you've done for him. Lillian, maybe it's time you showed him exactly what he's taking for granted." "What do you mean?" "Document it. Every sacrifice, every penny spent, every dream you put on hold. Make him see what he's throwing away for this girl." As I lay in bed that night, surrounded by the photos and memories Easton now seemed to find embarrassing, an idea took root. I got up and went to my closet, pulling out the old art portfolio case I'd kept all these years. Inside were the acceptance letters to art school I'd never attended, the scholarship I'd turned down to work full-time after Easton's father left. I opened my laptop and started typing. "Dear Easton, before you dismiss this as the ramblings of your clingy mother, I want you to see exactly what love looks like." The words flowed easily, years of unspoken feelings, finding their way onto the page. By morning, I had the beginning of something that would either bring my son back to me or set us both free. Either way, things were about to change. Andrea wanted me gone? Fine. But first, I would make sure my son understood exactly what he was losing. Sometimes the greatest act of love is knowing when to walk away, and sometimes the sweetest revenge is simply showing someone what they've thrown away. I picked up my phone and called the number I'd been too afraid to dial for 25 years. "Hello, is this still the number for the Art Institute's adult education program?" It was time to stop being baggage and start being Lillian again. The portfolio grew thicker with each passing day, as did the distance between Easton and me. 3 weeks had passed since that dinner, and he'd only called twice, both times to cancel our regular Sunday brunches. I sat at my dining room table, surrounded by papers, photos, and receipts. Ruby perched on the chair across from me, reading through the latest addition to my collection. "Look at this," I said, sliding over Easton's college tuition statements. "I took out a second mortgage to pay for his engineering degree, lived on ramen noodles for 2 years." Ruby whistled. "And now he can't even make time for brunch." The doorbell rang, interrupting our conversation. Through the window, I spotted Easton's car in the driveway, with Andrea in the passenger seat. "I need to grab some of my old textbooks from the basement," Easton announced as they walked in, barely meeting my eyes. "Andrea's cousin might need them." "Of course," I replied, quickly gathering the portfolio papers. "Would you like some coffee?" "We can't stay," Andrea cut in, her designer heels clicking on my hardwood floors. "We have dinner reservations at LeBlanc." Ruby stood up, her chair scraping against the floor. "I don't believe we've met. I'm Ruby, Lillian's friend." "Charmed," Andrea said, not sounding charmed at all. She turned to Easton. "Baby, the reservation's at 7. We need to hurry." I followed them to the basement door, watching as Easton disappeared down the stairs. Andrea stayed behind, examining her manicure. "You know," she said quietly, "it's a bit sad, isn't it? Sitting around with old photos all day. Don't you have any hobbies?" Before I could respond, shouting erupted from the basement. "What do you mean you spent our vacation fund on a car?" Easton's voice carried up the stairs. "It's an investment in our future," Andrea snapped back. "That beaten-up Honda of yours isn't suitable for someone in your position. What would my father think?" "Your father? What does he have to do with anything?" "He's offering you a position at his firm, Easton, but you need to look the part. That's why I used the money to put a down payment on the BMW." "You did what?" Easton's footsteps thundered up the stairs. "That money was for our trip to Europe." "Europe can wait," Andrea said, her voice honey-sweet again. "This is about our future. Don't you want to succeed?" I watched my son's face transform from anger to uncertainty, the same expression he'd worn as a child when someone offered him candy he knew he shouldn't take. I guess you're right," he finally said, deflating. "But next time, please talk to me first." Andrea beamed victorious. "Of course, baby. Now come on, we'll be late." They left without the textbooks, Easton trailing behind Andrea like a lost puppy. Ruby waited until their car disappeared before speaking. "Did you record that conversation on your phone?" I nodded, stopping the recording app. "Added to the evidence pile." "Good," Ruby said, helping me gather the scattered papers. "But Lillian, watching this isn't healthy. You need to finish this portfolio and move on. Have you called the Art Institute back?" "I start classes next week," I admitted. "Just 2 evenings to start. I haven't painted in decades. I might be terrible." "But you'll be doing something for yourself, finally." Ruby picked up an old sketch I'd done of Easton as a baby. "You've got talent, Lil. It's time to use it." That night, I added the recorded conversation to my portfolio, along with a letter I'd been dreading to write. "Dear Easton, remember when you were 16, and that boy Tommy bullied you about your second-hand clothes? I told you that sometimes people who seem to care about us can actually be the ones hurting us the most. I wonder if you remember that conversation. I'm adding this letter to help you understand what I witnessed today. Not to hurt you, but because I love you too much to watch silently as history repeats itself." A text from Easton interrupted my writing. "Sorry about today, Mum. Andrea's just stressed about work. Maybe we can do brunch next Sunday." I stared at the message, my finger hovering over the reply button. Instead, I opened my email and clicked on the Art Institute's welcome letter. The supply list for my first class stared back at me. Canvas, brushes, paints. Tomorrow, I decided, I would buy art supplies instead of groceries for Sunday brunch. It was time to paint my own future, even if it meant watching my son make his mistakes from a distance. Sometimes love means stepping back and letting karma take its course. The portfolio felt heavy in my hands as I walked up to Easton's apartment. 6 months of evidence, memories, and hard truths bound together in a leather case I'd once hoped would hold my own artwork. Ruby's words from this morning echoed in my head. "You're doing the right thing, Lil. Stay strong." I knocked on the door, my heart pounding against my ribs. Andrea opened it, wearing one of Easton's old college shirts like a trophy. "Oh," she said, her smile dropping. "Easton didn't mention you were coming by." I texted him this morning. I stepped past her into the apartment I'd helped furnish, but barely recognized anymore. Designer pillows had replaced the ones I'd made. Family photos were gone, replaced by modern art prints. "Mom?" Easton emerged from the bedroom, looking surprised. "I thought you were coming next weekend." "We need to talk," I said, clutching the portfolio. "Now." Andrea moved to stand beside him. "We actually have plans." "Alone," I added firmly. Easton glanced between us, then nodded. "Give us a minute, babe." Andrea's heels clicked angrily as she retreated to the bedroom, slamming the door. We sat at the kitchen table, the one I'd refinished for his first apartment. I placed the portfolio between us. "What's this?" he asked. "Everything," I replied, opening it to the first page. "Every sacrifice, every choice, every moment that led us here." His eyes widened at the college tuition statements. "Mom, Keep reading." He flipped through the pages. Medical bills from when he broke his arm in middle school, the foreclosure notice on my dream house after his father left, bank statements showing withdrawn retirement funds to pay for his engineering internship. "There's more," I said, my voice steady despite my trembling hands. "The acceptance letter to art school I never attended, the gallery invitation I turned down, the small business loan I was approved for but never used because you needed braces that year." Easton's face paled as he reached the recent additions, screenshots of Andrea's social media posts mocking my outdated home, the recorded conversation about the vacation fund, credit card statements showing her purchases on his accounts. "I didn't know," he whispered, "about any of this." "You weren't supposed to. That's what mothers do. We shield our children from the hard parts." I took a deep breath. "But now you're not a child anymore, and I'm not just a mother." The bedroom door cracked open. Andrea's voice carried across the apartment. "Baby, we're going to be late for the reservation." Easton didn't look up from the portfolio. "Why are you showing me this now?" "Because yesterday I got this." I pulled out one final paper, my acceptance letter to the Art Institute's full-time program. "I'm moving to the city. I've already sold the house." "You're what?" He stood up so fast his chair toppled backward. "But where will I mean, what about your home, your safety net, your free storage space?" I stood too, stronger than I'd felt in years. "Those aren't my responsibilities anymore, Easton. They never should have been." "She's manipulating you." Andrea burst out of the bedroom. "Can't you see that? She's trying to make you feel guilty." "The truth isn't manipulation," I said quietly. "It's just the truth." I walked to the door, pausing with my hand on the knob. "I love you, Easton. I always will. But I love myself too, and it's time I proved it." "Mom, wait," his voice cracked. "Please, I didn't know." "That's the problem," I replied. "You never asked." The elevator ride down was a blur. Outside, Ruby waited in her car, just as promised. "Did you do it?" she asked as I slid into the passenger seat. I nodded, tears finally spilling over. "He looked so lost, Ruby, like when he was little and couldn't find his favorite toy." "Except he's not little anymore," she reminded me, pulling away from the curb. "And you're not just his toy box." My phone buzzed with messages from Easton. "Mom, please come back. We need to talk about this." "I'm sorry. Andrea's wrong about you." The last message came as Ruby pulled up to my house. My former house, now sold to a young family with 2 kids. "I found the sketch you did of me as a baby. I never knew you could draw like that. Why didn't you tell me?" I turned off my phone and looked at the moving truck in my driveway. 25 years of memories packed into cardboard boxes, ready to make way for new ones. Ready? Ruby asked. No, I admitted, but I'm doing it anyway. Sometimes the hardest part isn't making the choice, it's living with it afterward. But as I walked toward my packed-up life, I felt lighter than I had in years. The portfolio had served its purpose. Now it was time to fill a new one. With art, with dreams, with me. 3 months into my new life, and my tiny studio apartment looked more like an artist's workspace than a home. Canvases lined the walls, some finished, others waiting for inspiration. Paint stains decorated every surface, including my clothes. You've got real talent, my art professor had said last week, studying my latest piece, a mother bird pushing her chick from the nest. Raw, emotional. Have you considered showing your work? I was arranging my newest paintings when Ruby burst through the door, waving her tablet. Lillian, you need to see this. She thrust the screen at me. Your story is trending on social media. I squinted at the article. Mother's Artistic Renaissance, from empty nest to empowerment. Someone had shared my journey on a popular parenting forum, and it had exploded overnight. Read the comments, Ruby insisted. Hundreds of mothers shared similar stories of sacrifice and lost dreams. Many asked how they could reclaim their own identities. This is bigger than just you, Ruby said, pacing excitedly. What if we created a space for women like this? A community center with art classes, support groups, career counseling. That's actually brilliant. I set down my paintbrush. But how would we even start? I've got savings, Ruby grinned, and you've got the story that's inspiring thousands. Let's do this. We spent the next week viewing potential spaces. The old warehouse on Mason Street caught my eye immediately. High ceilings, natural light, and enough room for studios and meeting spaces. As we explored the building, my phone buzzed. Easton's number flashed on the screen. I hadn't heard from him in weeks. Mum? His voice sounded different, tired. I saw the article about your art. Why didn't you tell me you were getting so much attention? Would you have been interested before? Silence stretched between us. Andrea's father offered me that job, he finally said. But there were conditions. I'd have to move across the country. Andrea's already looking at houses. And what do you want? I don't know anymore. He paused. Your paintings, they're amazing. That one of the mother bird. Is that how you felt? Still feel, I corrected gently. I have to go, Easton. I'm looking at a property for my new project. Project? A non-profit, for women who lost themselves in being everything to everyone else. More silence. Then, can I come see your art sometime? The gallery showing is next Friday. You're welcome to attend. I hesitated. Just you. After hanging up, I turned to find Ruby watching me. You okay? She asked. Better than okay. I gestured around the warehouse. This is it. This is where we'll build something meaningful. The next few weeks passed in a blur of renovation plans, permit applications, and painting. Women began reaching out, offering to volunteer, teach classes, share their stories. Each email reinforced that we were creating something important. One evening, as I was setting up my easel in what would become the main studio, a delivery arrived. The package contained a single sheet of weathered paper, my original application to art school from 25 years ago, with a post-it note attached. Found this while cleaning out Dad's old files. He never told you he intercepted your acceptance letter, did he? Andrea saw me looking at it and said I should throw it away. That's when I finally understood what you meant about people who hurt us while pretending to care. Easton. I sat down hard on my paint-splattered stool, staring at the yellowed paper. All those years wondering if I'd been good enough, and my ex-husband had simply decided for me. Ruby found me there an hour later, still holding the letter. Look at this, I said, showing her the paper and note. She read it twice. Are you okay? You know what? I am. I stood up, pinning the old acceptance letter to my inspiration board. This isn't about what was taken from me anymore. It's about what I'm building now. Speaking of building, Ruby smiled. The contractor called. We can start renovations next week. I looked around the empty warehouse, already seeing what it would become. Walls filled with art, rooms buzzing with conversation and creativity, women rediscovering themselves. My phone chimed with a text from Easton. Andrea's furious I'm not taking the job. Says I'm throwing away our future. Funny, that's exactly what you wrote about in the portfolio, isn't it? I didn't respond immediately. Instead, I picked up my brush and faced my latest canvas. A phoenix rising from ashes, its wings spread wide and proud. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about getting better, growing stronger, and helping others do the same. As I began to paint, I smiled, knowing that every stroke was another step forward in my own renaissance. Renaissance Women's Center. The sign gleamed in the morning sun as reporters gathered outside our newly renovated building. 6 months of hard work had transformed the warehouse into something extraordinary. Ms. Lillian, a journalist waved her microphone. Your story has inspired thousands. Did you expect this response when you first picked up your paintbrush again? Before I could answer, Ruby appeared at my side. Let's save the questions for the press conference inside. We have a ribbon to cut. The main gallery space buzzed with energy. My paintings lined the walls. The motherbird, the phoenix, and dozens more that told my story. But it was the community spaces that made me proudest. Art studios, counseling rooms, and a career center already booked solid for months. Mom? I turned to find Easton standing awkwardly by the entrance, holding something wrapped in brown paper. You came, I said, surprised. He hadn't confirmed for the opening. Alone, he added quickly. Andrea and we're taking a break. Before I could respond, a local news crew approached. Could we get an interview with both of you? The mother-son story behind this project is fascinating. Easton shifted uncomfortably. I don't deserve to be part of this story. Actually, I said, maybe you do. Our story might help others recognize toxic relationships before they lose themselves. The reporter positioned us near my motherbird painting. So, Easton, how does it feel seeing your mother's success? Honestly? He glanced at me, ashamed and proud. I was so caught up in someone else's vision of success that I forgot to see the strength that was right in front of me. And the breaking point? The reporter pressed. Finding out my girlfriend had been secretly recording my mother's embarrassing behavior to mock online. His voice cracked. She thought it was funny. I finally saw it was cruel. The reporter turned to me. And you had no idea about these recordings? Actually, I smiled sadly, they're part of the portfolio I showed him. Sometimes people reveal their true selves when they think no one's watching. After the interview, Easton handed me the wrapped package. I found this in Andrea's phone. She'd been planning to use it to humiliate you at some charity gala. Inside was a canvas print of me from months ago, crying in my old kitchen while packing boxes. Instead of shame, I felt triumph. This is perfect, I declared, immediately hanging it among my other works. Every story needs a turning point. The day flew by in a whirlwind of interviews, tours, and emotional conversations with women sharing their own stories. By evening, only a few stragglers remained, including a young mother clutching a sketchbook. I haven't drawn since my daughter was born, she admitted. My husband says it's selfish to want time for art. I used to believe that too, I said, leading her to our studio space. Let's prove him wrong. Ruby joined us, carrying enrollment forms. First class is on the house, she winked. As the woman began sketching, tears rolling down her cheeks, Easton touched my arm. Mom, there's something else you should know. He looked nervous. Andrea's been telling people you're mentally unstable, that this whole center is some kind of breakdown. She's trying to get her father's law firm involved. Let her, Ruby snapped, overhearing. We've got hundreds of women ready to testify about how this place changed their lives. Plus, the media loves Lillian's story. It's not just that, Easton continued. She's been spreading rumors about the center's finances, suggesting fraud. A commotion at the entrance cut him off. Andrea stormed in, designer heels clicking against our new hardwood floors. "How dare you turn him against me?" she shrieked, pointing at me. "All this attention, this fake empowerment nonsense, it's pathetic." The young mother with the sketchbook stood up. "Mom, I think you need to leave." "Oh, shut up," Andrea snapped. "You're all just sad, desperate." "Security," Ruby called calmly into her phone. "Main gallery, please." Andrea's face contorted. "You'll be hearing from my father's lawyers. I'll make sure everyone knows what a fraud you are." "Actually," Easton stepped forward, phone recording, "I think you've done enough talking." As security escorted a screaming Andrea out, I turned to the young mother, who looked shaken. "And that," I said, picking up a brush, "is exactly why we built this place. Shall we paint?" She smiled, wiping her eyes. Yes, please." Later, watching her create her first piece in years, I realized something profound. My revenge hadn't been in exposing Andrea, or even in my own success. It was in creating the space where other women could reclaim their power, one brushstroke at a time. Easton stayed until closing, helping clean up paint supplies and listening to women's stories. With each one, I saw understanding dawn in his eyes, the same understanding that had set me free. "Turn on the news," Ruby's voice blasted through my phone early Monday morning. "Channel 7 now." I fumbled for my remote, nearly spilling my coffee. The screen flickered to life, showing Andrea being escorted from her father's law firm in handcuffs. "Hi, allegations of embezzlement and fraud," the reporter announced. Sources say Andrea Murray had been siphoning funds from multiple client accounts, including several non-profit organizations. The investigation began after suspicious activity was noticed in accounts belonging to... My phone buzzed with another call. "Easton." I switched to speaker. "Mum, are you watching?" "I am. Are you okay?" "She tried to frame me." His voice shook. "Used my passwords to transfer money. If I hadn't found those documents on her laptop..." "Wait," I sat up straighter. "You're the one who turned her in." "After I saw what she was planning for your center, yeah, I couldn't let her hurt anyone else." The doorbell rang. I opened it to find Ruby still in her pajamas, tablet in hand. "It's everywhere," she announced, striding in. "Social media's exploding. Andrea's father just resigned from his firm. And look at this." She thrust the tablet at me. On screen was Andrea's private Instagram account. Leaked screenshots showing years of manipulative behavior, including her plans to discredit me and the Renaissance Center. "The karma is absolutely delicious," Ruby grinned. My phone kept buzzing with notifications. Women from the center were sharing their stories, defending our work. Local businesses were reaching out about partnerships. 3 more news stations wanted interviews. "Mum?" Easton was still on speaker. "Can I come over? There's something I need to show you." 30 minutes later, he arrived carrying a familiar leather portfolio, the one I'd given him months ago. "I've been adding to it," he said, opening it on my kitchen table. "Everything Andrea did, everything I should have seen sooner, but also this." He pulled out a stack of papers, applications to local engineering firms, lease agreements for an apartment nearby, and a volunteer registration form for the Renaissance Center. "I'm not taking her father's job offer," he declared. "I want to build something meaningful, like you did. And..." He hesitated. "I want to help other people avoid what happened to us." Ruby wiped her eyes, not even trying to hide her tears. "I'll get the coffee started. We've got a lot to discuss." My phone rang again. The local newspaper. "Ms. Lillian, we're running a feature on Andrea Murray's downfall and its connection to your center. Would you care to comment?" I looked at Easton, who nodded encouragingly. "Actually," I said, "I would. But not about Andrea. I'd rather talk about recognition, recognizing your worth, recognizing toxic relationships, and recognizing when it's time to stand up for yourself and others." The interview lasted an hour. By the end, the reporter was asking about our programs and how people could support the center. "One last question," she said. "What would you say to Andrea now?" "Thank you," I replied without hesitation. Sometimes our greatest adversaries become our greatest catalysts for change. After hanging up, I found Easton and Ruby had spread the volunteer forms across the table, planning new programs for the center. We could start a support group, Easton suggested, for people recovering from manipulative relationships. I could share my experience. And we've got that empty office upstairs, Ruby added. Perfect for counseling sessions. My phone pinged with a news alert. Andrea Murray faces additional charges, cyberbullying and harassment evidence surfaces. Mum, Easton looked up from the papers. Are you okay? I walked to my easel, where a new painting was taking shape, a garden growing through broken concrete. I'm better than okay, I replied, picking up my brush. For the first time in my life, everything's exactly as it should be. Ruby raised her coffee mug. To karma. To new beginnings, Easton added. To truth, I said, making the first stroke on my canvas. It always finds its way to the surface. As I painted, Easton and Ruby continued planning, their voices filled with purpose and possibility. Outside, reporters were probably still camped out, waiting for comments about Andrea's arrest. But in here, in this space filled with art and hope and healing, none of that mattered. My phone buzzed one final time. A message from the young mother who'd been at our opening. Just signed my first art commission. Thank you for showing me it's never too late to reclaim your dreams. I smiled, adding another stroke to my painting. Sometimes the best revenge isn't watching your enemies fall. It's rising so high that their actions become nothing more than footnotes in your success story. She's asking to see you, Easton said, pacing my studio at the center. Andrea, her lawyer says she wants to apologize. I set down my paintbrush, studying my son's troubled face. 2 months had passed since Andrea's arrest, and the media frenzy had finally started to die down. And what do you think about that? I asked. I think she's manipulating again. He stopped pacing, running his hands through his hair. The sentencing is next week. She's probably hoping for character statements to reduce her jail time. Ruby burst through the door, waving a newspaper. Have you seen this? Andrea's father is claiming she has a personality disorder, trying to get her charges reduced. Of course he is, I sighed, turning back to my canvas, a woman breaking free from chains. What do you think, Ruby? Should I meet with her? Only if you're recording every second of it, Ruby declared, and I'm coming with you. The meeting was arranged for the next day in Andrea's lawyer's office. She sat across the conference table, designer clothes, replaced by a simple blouse and skirt, makeup minimal. She looked younger, almost vulnerable. Lillian, she began, voice trembling, I'm so sorry for everything. Are you sorry for what you did or sorry you got caught? Ruby asked sharply. Andrea's lawyer shifted uncomfortably. Ms. Murray has prepared a statement. No statements, I interrupted. Just truth. That's all I'm interested in. Andrea's perfectly crafted facade cracked. Truth? Fine, I was jealous. You had everything I wanted. Respect, love, purpose. I thought if I could prove you were pathetic, it would make me feel better. And did it? No. Tears spilled down her cheeks. It made me worse, meaner, more desperate. When I saw your center helping other women, I couldn't stand it. Their happiness felt like a personal attack, so you tried to destroy it. Yes. She wiped her eyes. But you just kept succeeding. Every attack made you stronger. And now, she gestured helplessly at her surroundings. Now you're facing jail time, I finished. And you want my help to avoid it. I want a chance to change, she whispered, like you did. I pulled out an envelope I'd prepared, sliding it across the table. Read it. Andrea's hands shook as she opened the letter. Dear Andrea, I'm willing to speak at your sentencing, but not to request leniency. Instead, I'll tell the truth about your actions, their impact, and what I believe you need. You need consequences. You need time to reflect. Most importantly, you need to understand that true strength isn't about tearing others down. If you're serious about changing, here's my offer. While you serve your time, take classes, get counseling, Write down your story, not as a victim, but as someone who chose the wrong path and wants to find a better one. When you're released, if you've done the work, there will be a place for you at the Renaissance Center. Not as a client, but as a cautionary tale, and eventually, perhaps, as proof that people can change. The choice is yours. Lillian. Andrea stared at the letter for a long moment. You'd really give me a chance? After everything? Everyone deserves a chance to rebuild, I said, standing. But first, they need to face what they've torn down. Outside the office, Ruby grabbed my arm. Are you sure about this? No, I admitted, but redemption has to start somewhere. My phone buzzed. A text from Easton. How did it go? Come to the center, I replied. There's something I need to show you. An hour later, Easton stood in our newest exhibition space, surrounded by artwork created by women from our programs. In the center was my latest piece, a mirror cracked into pieces, each shard reflecting a different aspect of healing. Andrea asked for help, I told him. I offered her a path, not a pardon. You're a better person than me, he said quietly. I don't know if I can forgive her. Forgiveness isn't about erasing the past, I replied, touching the mirror's frame. It's about choosing your future. Ruby appeared with coffee and forms for our newest program, Breaking Free, Recovery from Toxic Relationships. Speaking of futures, she smiled, we've got 20 women signed up already. Easton picked up a brush from my easel. Need any help with the beginner classes? Always, I said, watching my son dip the brush in paint, making his first tentative stroke on a blank canvas. Sometimes confronting your demons isn't about winning or losing. It's about standing firm in your truth and offering others the chance to find theirs. As I watched Easton paint, I realized that healing, like art, is never really finished. It just keeps evolving, one brushstroke at a time. The gallery buzzed with excitement as guests moved between the artworks, each piece telling a story of transformation. My original portfolio lay open in a glass case, a reminder of where this journey began. Mom, Easton called from across the room. They're ready for the ceremony. I made my way through the crowd, pausing briefly to squeeze Ruby's hand. She was crying already, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. Don't you dare make me cry too, I warned. I still have to give a speech. The Renaissance Center's first graduation ceremony was about to begin. 28 women stood ready to receive their certificates, some in art, others in business development or counseling. Each had their own story of breaking free and finding strength. Before we begin, I addressed the crowd, I want to share something that arrived this morning. I opened a letter postmarked from the State Correctional Facility. Dear Lillian, today marks 6 months of my sentence. I've completed the counseling programs you suggested and started teaching an art therapy class here. The other inmates call me the cautionary tale. I understand now what you meant about facing what I've torn down. Every day I see the damage toxic behavior causes. Every day I choose to be different. Thank you for showing me that revenge isn't always about destruction. Sometimes it's about reconstruction. Andrea, murmurs rippled through the audience. I continued. This center was born from pain, but it grew through hope. Each woman graduating today has faced their own Andrea, whether it was another person, society's expectations, or their own self-doubt. The graduates stood straighter, many holding hands. But more importantly, I gestured to Easton, who stepped forward with a stack of envelopes. Each graduate is leaving with something crucial, a future. Easton began distributing the envelopes. Inside, you'll find job offers, gallery contracts, or small business loans, whatever matches your new path. The Renaissance Center isn't just about healing the past, it's about building tomorrow. Ruby joined us, carrying a covered canvas. We have one more surprise. Lillian, would you do the honors? I unveiled the painting, a collaborative piece created by all 28 graduates, with spaces left blank around the edges. This mural will hang in our entrance, I explained. Each new graduate will add their own mark, creating an ever-growing testament to transformation. The first graduate approached the podium, tears streaming down her face. I was that young mother with the sketchbook, she said. Now I'm opening my own gallery. One by one, they shared their stories. A former corporate lawyer who'd lost herself in others' expectations. A grandmother finally pursuing her dreams after raising everyone else's children. A young woman who'd escaped an abusive relationship. Easton stepped up to the microphone. When my mother first showed me her portfolio, I thought she was trying to make me feel guilty. Instead, she was showing me how to be brave. He turned to me, holding out a small wrapped package. This is from all of us. Inside was a new portfolio case, but instead of being filled with evidence of sacrifice, it contained letters. Hundreds of them, from women whose lives had been touched by the center. Read the last one, Ruby whispered. I opened it to find Easton's handwriting. Dear Mom, you taught me that true strength isn't in holding on, but in knowing when to let go. When you walked away, you showed me how to walk towards something better. I'm proud to be part of this center's story. I'm prouder to be your son. Love, Easton. The room erupted in applause as I hugged him, both of us crying now. Okay, enough tears, Ruby announced. We've got futures to celebrate. As the graduates mingled with potential employers and gallery owners, I stood before the collaborative mural. Each piece reflected its creator's journey. Broken chains, blooming flowers, birds taking flight. Ready to add your piece? Easton asked, offering me a brush. I dipped it in paint, adding my contribution, a simple open door with light streaming through. Perfect, Ruby nodded. Now, about expanding to a second location. Already planning ahead? I laughed. Always, she grinned. The waiting list keeps growing. I looked around at my son teaching art to children of our graduates, at Ruby organizing the next phase of our growth, at the women who'd become not just success stories, but family. This was more than revenge or redemption. This was revolution, quiet, powerful, unstoppable. One canvas, one woman, one truth at a time. I picked up my brush again. There was still space on the mural, still stories to be told, still lives to be transformed. And this time, I wasn't walking away from anything. I was walking toward everything.